This is really part of our continuing dialogue with Norwalk in terms of the Walk Bridge project. We have been meeting with the mayor and his team on a regular basis, informing him about the project and talking about different ways that we can minimize and address the construction impacts associated with the project. So I'm Jim Fallon. I'm the manager of Facilities and Transit at DOT. Our purpose tonight is that we want to give you an update as far as where we are on the environmental process, and then also talk about the design phases associated with the Walk Bridge project. And then we also talk about the start of construction on 243 and Dockyard. Just a forewarning, this is going to take probably about 30 minutes. There's a lot of material, so that's where we're going as far as time frame goes. Just got to do a software update. Don't think we want to do that right now. Okay, so you guys can all hear me, right? Should be all right. I just want to get away from that a little bit just for the first couple slides. So like I said, I'll do a program update along with John Hannafin. Mandy will talk about historical consultation and the MOA process. Stacy Epps from our Office of Construction will run through 243 and Dockyard. And then at the end, we'll be available for questions and answers. So this is our project slide. So first projects that are shown in blue are the rail system improvement projects. That includes the 243 interlocking project that allows trains to move from one track to another. That'll be starting up. Also associated with that job, we will be doing a crossing at the Saugatuck River as well as at the Norwalk River. Those are really signal improvements or signal connections, I should say. The Danbury Dockyard job, can't really see this pointer. Danbury Dockyard job is shown in green going up the Danbury branch. That will allow for turning and storage and of the trains instead of turning on the Walk Bridge itself. Walk Bridge is shown in yellow, and basically that goes from Washington through Fort Point. And then we're also going to do, as part of the program, Osborne and East Avenue replacement projects, and that's really to take advantage of the two-track outage that we have during the construction of the walk. So program costs, total program costs are about $1 billion. That's evenly split, as shown, between the Walk and Danbury and 243 projects. These costs are all inclusive of design, rights-of-way, and construction costs. As far as the program schedule, so in the yellow star is where we are today. Looking back, we have completed the environmental planning phase and process for the Walk Bridge. We are starting the environmental permitting phase and planning for the Walk Bridge project. Design development will continue and will proceed into final design for the Walk Bridge. And then Walk Bridge construction itself will start in early 2019. And as shown here, we are under construction, or we'll be starting construction soon for 243 and Dockyard. In terms of the environmental process, during the last 2 years, we did our public scoping meeting back in February of 2015. We had our public comment period in the early last fall and through December. There was a number of comments in public comment period, responses and things of that nature. I think we had upwards of 20 to 30 meetings that we came down in the early part of this year between January and March. Everyone that had comments, we tried to address in a small group fashion and respond to them. And those resulted in the ROD for the SEPA and also the finding of no significant impact as defined by NEPA in July of this year. And with the conclusion of those environmental documents, it allows us to proceed into final design on the Walk Bridge. As a result of a lot of the comments that were received, as well as some of our dialogue that we had with the local stakeholders, within those environmental documents, whether it's a FONSI or the ROD, there's a number of coordination plans that are really get to mitigation and working with the concerns that were raised. And those fall into 4 different categories: safety and security, resource protection, community and construction coordination. One of the big ones in terms of community is the business coordination plan. We are going to be working with the chamber and making outreach to the businesses in the area. And really that's all about understanding what your business is about, what your patrons are, what your customers are, when your peak hours might be of business, and how we can try to work together to mitigate that. Okay, and with that I'll turn over to John.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Glad to see some of your faces that were here before and new people that just arrived. All right, like Jim said, I'm going to talk a little about where we are in the design schedule and upcoming construction schedule. This first slide, as Jim mentioned, we completed the NEPA process, so this will allow us to complete the design and permitting, and then we'll get into construction. So for the Walk Bridge project, we anticipate construction to start in 2019. It's going to be a 4 to 5 year duration. Estimated construction costs of $550 million. This drawing here is just a little overview of the program. You have the blue section, which is the Walk Bridge replacement project. Starts down at the Y, down by the Washington Street Bridge, goes all the way up to the Fort Point Street Bridge. The orange is the actual replacement of the Fort Point Street Bridge. There's yellow work, which is track replacement work. Then you're going to see an adjacent project, which is the Osborne Superstructure Replacement Project. And then you're going to see a purple section. That's the East Avenue Bridge Replacement Project and the roadway work that has to happen on East Avenue. And then you'll see a pink section, and that's the retaining wall near the East Avenue station that has to be replaced. This overall program is represented by this slide. And we're going to replace all 4 tracks, work our way across from east to west. So as Jim said, now that NEPA is completed, we have our selected alternative, 240-foot vertical lift span. This gives us many advantages. It has the shortest construction schedule, the lowest risk to during construction. There's no extended navigation restrictions. Has the fewest foundations located in the river. There's a lot of flexibility in the architectural design of the structure. And it gives improved navigational channel. You're going to have a nice wide navigational channel when we're done with this project.
No extended navigation restrictions.
That means that we're going to be able to work the river, allow the movement of the vessels in the river freely, and have limited navigation disruption during that period. We can address some more questions as we go along at the end. So working with the city, this is an architectural, in coordination with the DAC committee, which is a city committee that was set up with the city and local businesses and other entities. We developed an artistic rendering, actually an architectural rendering with that group that shows this 240-foot vertical lift bridge. So this is the architectural sketch that was developed, and we had feedback from the DAC committee and the city as this was being developed, and you can see what that looks like as an option for, as the selected option for the bridge. So we took that architectural rendering and we developed a 3D model of that rendering, and this is what the project currently looks like. Now I want to point out that this represents a 30% design currently, and we will be continuing to progress the design, and we'll have chances to make tweaks to this and address people's comments that come in as we progress the design based on design progression. So the first project that Jim was talking about earlier was the Danbury Dockyard Branch project. This is going to basically replace the tracks at catenary and replace this communication system for the Danbury Dockyard project. This project is going to start this October, and it's roughly a 3-year project. So this little drawing here shows you the track alignment. The yellow is track replacement or realignment. And also included in this project is the blue, which is the Ann Street Bridge. We're going to do a superstructure replacement at this location. And this is this little drawing that shows the existing Ann Street Bridge, and then the lower drawing is the replacement structure. And Virtually, other than having new steel, you guys will pretty much, it'll look like it was the existing structure. CP243 interlocking project. This is a 4-track interlocking. We're going to put in 6 switches. We're going to have track realignment. We have to adjust the overhead catenary system modifications. We're also going to have communications and signal upgrades. And that's the majority of the 243 interlocking project. The construction duration is 3.5 years, and that also starts this October. And this is a drawing that shows the limits of the work. So basically going by color coding here, you have the blue, which is the communications and signal work. That starts down at the South Norwalk Station, goes all the way almost up to the Westport Station. At the same time, when you get to the Norwalk River and the Saugatuck River, we have crossings there. That's going to be submarine cable that has to take place. We are going to have the new tracks in the purple section. That's going to be where the actual interlocking is and the switches. And track realignment takes place also in that area. And that's the gist of that project. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mandy Branslow.
Good evening. Hi, my name's Mandy. I'm an archaeologist at DOT, and I have been working with the local community on some of our historic impacts and commitments. So Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires us to take into consideration the impacts to historic structures. And we've been working with a number of consulting parties, as you can see on the list. We've been working with these groups since about mid-2014. And this has been done through a number of specific meetings with these groups, and in addition to talking about these impacts at the public meetings. So the department has committed to doing a number of things for each of these 3 projects. I'll just go through those kind of quickly. So for the CP243 project, we're really just impacting catenary structures. So we'll be documenting those and making those available for possible salvage and use for display elsewhere. We're doing the same thing for the Danbury branch, where we're impacting, again, catenary structures, and we are also documenting the Ann Street Bridge as part of that project. So for the larger Walk Bridge project, we're pretty excited to be doing a lot of extra things. We're doing the same thing for the other 2 projects. We're doing documentation of the historic structures, possible salvage of materials that will be coming off the bridge or the rail line, including the stone. But what's really exciting is we are working with the local community on some initiatives for public education. So these are opportunities for us to explore Norwalk's rich history in general, and more specifically the rail history. And we're doing a number of things that are for the community. So we'll be working on some exhibits, some interpretive panels. We had a kickoff meeting last week to talk about restoring some historic fencing around Matthews Park. And I think I saw Patsy here. We were working with her. And then, in addition to that, the design review amongst the historic stakeholders, and as Jim mentioned, the historic building protection plan. So we're actively working on these things now. The Phase 2 archaeology is underway. We had a kickoff meeting or phone call really, I think 2 weeks ago about the catenary salvage, and we talked to some of the city representatives about that. Letters have been sent out to local historic museums soliciting interest in hosting one of the exhibits. And again, the Matthews Park fencing plan, we're working with Patsy and others on that. So we will continue to have meetings and continue to consult with the Preservation Trust, the Historic Commission, the Historic Society, and other folks. Reports and documentation will be shared with these groups and with the city in general as they become available. And now Stacy.
Thank you, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Epps. I'm with the department's Construction and Engineering Division. Our primary role is to oversee the day-to-day operations for the department. And my portion of the presentation today is 2 parts. I'm going to provide an overview for what to expect during construction and also provide a schedule for construction activity projected out to the spring of 2018. You guys hear me okay? No? Better? All right, sorry about that. So, all right, I'll stand here. So we're going to start off with hours of work for construction activity. So with the Danbury branch, the majority of the construction activity will occur during the daytime. Since the Danbury branch is not the main line, the rules for working on a railroad are not as strict, and allows us to perform the majority of the work during the daytime. There will be some nighttime work, but it'll be minimal. Maybe 10% of the work will be at night. And conversely, the CP 243 interlocking project is on main line, New Haven main line, so the rules for working on the railroad are much stricter. So the majority of that work will occur during the nighttime hours, and a minimum amount of work during the day, and also day and night operations on the weekend as well. So we're going to switch gears and talk about haul routes. Now, I know this map looks kind of daunting, but what we're depicting here on this graphic is it shows the haul roads that the contractors required to use during the construction activity. And it's not like we're going to have hundreds of trucks on the road at one time, but these are just the dedicated routes in the contract. We don't envision any more than maybe 15 or maybe a few more trucks on the railroad at one particular time. And when I say construction vehicles, heavy equipment vehicles such as dump trucks and heavy haulers, not necessarily pickup and vans and things like that the contractor may utilize. So contractor staging areas. So the contractor will begin to utilize staging areas in a few locations throughout the city. We can expect fencing to be erected with safety lighting, and material storage will be there, such as toolbox, lumber, steel, and you'll frequently see trucks loading and offloading and egressing these areas. So this graphic here depicts the contractor staging area off of Goldstein Place, which is off of Route 136. As you can see, the blue hashed area delineates the fenced-in yard that the contractor will utilize for storing equipment, convex boxes, and the tools of the trade to construct the project. And in the top right-hand corner is another one of the contractor's staging areas, and this is at Northern Place Yard. And the majority of that yard will be used for the CP 243 project to store the railroad material. There's another graphic showing the Northern Place Yard. So noise and vibration, I think everyone here understands that noise is inherent to construction. Those two are married, so it's inevitable. But the department is aware of the impacts that these construction activities can cause, and we're sensitive to the city's concerns and the stakeholders' concerns regarding noise and impacts from that noise. So regarding that, there's a plan in place for noise and vibration. We will identify sensitive receptive areas, establish baseline noise and vibration levels, to determine what means we need to take to mitigate any noise if necessary. Our threshold for noise, for construction noise, is 90 decibels. So we'll establish a baseline and use that as a guide. And we'll also mitigate any anticipated nuisance noise and coordinate with stakeholders having meetings to address their concerns. Additionally, on noise and vibration mitigation measures, we will have ongoing noise mitigation, ongoing noise monitoring. We will maximize daytime work to the extent possible. When possible, we can also utilize low impact equipment, suppress noise equipment when possible, and limit idle time on equipment. Some additional mitigation measures based on concerns from the city and stakeholders. There's concern about fugitive dust, Part of our standard practices is to control that dust using water, calcium, and daily sweeping. There's concerns with drainage. Some of the staging areas, there's concern about changing the sheet flow if the contractor has modifications to a staging area. Currently, there's no revisions to topography in these staging areas. And if there were to come, then the contractor is required to submit a stormwater handling plan to manage this water. And also rodent control is a big concern with the city. The contractor has acquired a local exterminator, and there's a plan in place, an action plan in place to implement once construction starts with traps and a site review to control any rodents that may be displaced during construction. And also, a traffic study is underway. There was concern from the business owners at Goldstein Place as far as construction vehicles egress in that area. So there's a traffic study underway to see what modifications may be done to that intersection out on 36 and Goldstein Place. So as part of construction, we're required to clear vegetation and clear trees to facilitate construction. And normally on a lot of construction projects, we'll clear cut for our construction needs. But there's been a concerted effort made on this project to hire an arborist and evaluate these trees. And based on requirements from Metro North and electrical codes and AREMA codes, it's determined that trees within 25 feet of the new tracks or 10 feet from electrical wires have to be cleared and trimmed. And trees will be protected, trimmed and cleared, have also been identified by a professional arborist. And we always have a landscape design plan that will be in place to replace trees that have been removed. And that plan hasn't been established yet, but it is forthcoming. So this is just a graphic that shows the limits of our clearing and grubbing and our selective thinning. So the purple line shows the complete clearing and grubbing, where the teal color shows where the selective clearing and selective trimming will occur. And that is on, I think it's CP 243. I'm sorry, dockyard. And this shows the limits of the clearing and thinning on the CP 243 mainline project as well. So now we'll get into the scheduled activities for the Danbury Branch project. So in the fall of 2017, the contractor will mobilize to his work areas, install fencing in his staging areas, begin to construct the waste stockpile areas where at exit, so there's two stockpile areas. There's one at the Route 7, exit 15 to West Avenue interchange, and also off of exit 13 on 95 southbound. These areas are used to store material that's going to be hauled off-site for disposal. We will also begin the tree trimming that we discussed, remove overhead wires and railroad debris on the dockyard, and also begin installing catenary foundations for the new work. In the winter, spring of 2018, the contractor will install new catenary structures and also begin installing railroad drainage, continue removal of overhead wires, remove track, ballast, poles, and foundations, and also begin subsurface work on the Ann Street Bridge. Continuing the spring and winter and spring of 2018, track bed work will also be underway. To reconstruct the track between Marshall Street and Science Road, and the Ann Street closures to replace the east portion of the superstructure will begin. So the Ann Street Bridge has approximately 50 days for each stage to construct the superstructure. The spring of 2018 and the fall of 2018. Advanced notice of detours and prominent signage will also be provided. This work will consist of day and nighttime activity, and pedestrians and driveway access will be maintained on Ann Street. So this now provides a schedule for the CP 243 interlocking project. So in fall of 2017, an initial survey and track monitoring will be performed. Tree trimming and clearing will also take place, and install temporary track pads, which provides the contractor access onto the tracks for his high rail equipment. Also in the fall of 2017, a temporary relocation of the Metro North feeders and signals and feeder cables will be relocated to facilitate construction needs, provide additional overhead clearance. Foundation for signal equipment and stair access will begin, and foundation work for signal equipment between Monroe Street and Goldstein Place will also take place. So this is just a graphic showing some locations of the signal equipment that will be along the railroad. We'll start on track 4, the southernmost track, with this construction. So in the spring, winter of 2018, continuing on CP 243, we'll have the removal and reconstruction of track 4, which again is the southernmost track. There'll be foundation and catenary work, foundation work for catenary poles, Drainage will also be installed at that same location, the south side, and catenary poles will also be erected. And also begin constructing platforms, vaults, conduits, and pole boxes for the new signal houses. So that's it for the construction schedule. There's also public involvement, so those who want to continue to stay engaged with the project. There's a Walk-Bridge Walk-In Center that will be established. It will be open in late fall of this year. And also we'll have continuing public info meetings early in 2018, which will touch base on the Walk-Bridge 60% design update, and also continuing updates on the CP 243 dockyard projects. And also you can stay involved. We're on Twitter, Facebook. You can receive updates through email announcements, and also sign in for info on walkbridge.com website. Thank you. Turn it over to Jim and Dean.
Yeah, let's go. Thanks, Stacy. So I think we're actually ahead of schedule. I didn't anticipate that. But let me just bring up, so I just want to introduce my counterpart on the construction side, who works with Stacy. So Dean Sarasoli is the Assistant District Engineer in 3A. So Dean will be handling the construction side. I'm on the design side, so we're the reps, if you will, for the department. We'll be out here for the next 5 to 6 years working on this project. So
Jim, go back 2 screens, right?
Okay.
Let's show 20 Marshall Street.
No, it's one screen. It's where you want to go, right? Yeah.
So this is where the presence is going to be for the construction folks once the jug is going sometime in October. On the first floor at 20 Marshall Street is going to be the inspection force. We've got the walk-in public information people, WSP, people that go to the aquarium. They're going to say, hey, there's a walk-in center there. They're going to learn about the project. Some of us are going to be up on the 3rd floor, so there's going to be a presence there. The contractor actually has a field office, what is it, 1517 North Water. So that's the goal, is construction is going to be heavily, we want to be right in the middle of this. You may not really see us or feel a need to talk to us for the first couple of years, because CP 243 is, you might not even know we're working up there. The dockyard is a little bit more visible, and obviously Ann Street's visible. Once the bridge is in full force going, we're all in this together, right? So the presence is going to be known and seen on our part.
Okay. Right.
So any questions or?
Yeah, good. So first I want to ask, is there any local, state, or federal officials, if anybody has any questions or comments? Yeah.
I have just one question.
Elizabeth?
When you're doing the CP 243, is that going to interrupt the scheduling of the trains on the main line?
Yeah, so during the 243, we've coordinated with Metro North, and we have allowable work windows and track outages, so the train schedules will be running as normal. I think there's hours of when we can get 1 track and when we can get 2 tracks and things like that. So throughout the design, and this is one of the benefits, the department's using CMGC as a delivery method, so we have a contractor on board throughout the design process. And we've been working with Metro North to understand when we can do the work and they can still maintain their rail operations. So the short answer is train operations will run as normal.
Yeah. With peak construction being in a limited window of 3 hours, maybe 1 to 4 in the morning, that type of thing, right? Because you got trains running right through midnight or so, and then you got the early commute in the morning. So that's part of the reason why it's expensive and it takes a long time to build this. Yeah.
Just, I assume that the scheduling for the dockyards will not affect that scheduling either then? You
No.
did say you were going to do it during the day, but it's same goal is not to interrupt the service.
Yeah, there's no interruption or effect on service. Yeah. Deborah?
Deb Goldstein.
Yeah, and that's a good point. If you don't mind, just introduce yourself if you have a question or
I'm a
comment.
resident of East Norwalk, and I happen to be a commissioner of the 3rd Taxing District. I actually have 3 questions. The easiest one is this going to be on the website tomorrow where we can all pick it up?
The PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, please, okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I'd like very much to know if there's any possibility that you guys are going to revisit the no impact letters on his 3 historical assets impacted in connection with the East Avenue Bridge and roadway project. We have historical pink sandstone that we'd like to see reused. We have a historical cemetery, the project's going right through there, and there's a historical marker at the East Avenue train station. And we've already received a new no impact letter on that, and we'd like it revisited. Given the level of attention that's being given to the other historical assets that have less significance than the ones that we actually own. And this is now under the Walk Ridge project. Very much like to see that revisited.
So Mandy, do you want to?
And then I do have a 3rd question.
Yeah.
Okay, so to your East Ave Bridge, we have draft reports right now that we are reviewing. So we are taking into consideration the monument, the bridge itself, and the cemetery as part of the roadway project. So the cemetery, we are not anticipating any direct impacts, but I have talked to the designers about vibration impacts, because we know that we don't want to damage any of the stones. So yes, the simple answer is we are taking all of that into consideration. We are revisiting that. So that letter that you have from SHPO, I think that was from 2009. Yeah, we're revisiting that. Yeah.
All right, and then the 3rd thing is we have kind of a mixed issue with regards to small businesses in our district that are going to be impacted. And your display did talk about the traffic impacts, but we have businesses here who literally can be driven out of business by the inability for their customers to get in and out and about. Now, we know that there's compensatory possibilities here, just like what's done up at the Q Bridge. But there is need for compensatory that kind of scans beyond. So we can talk to the DECD to try and do some compensatory for the businesses, and maybe it's wayfinding and advertising and other things to help them. But we also would like to be able to coordinate with one team and talk to you guys also about things that the state and the state transportation agency in particular can do to mitigate for the community. For example, sound barriers on the highway. Been on the wish list for East Norwalk. We're the only Fairfield County residential community that does not have them. It seems like it would be a natural thing to help offset the pain for our community if we were actually be able to finally have something like that, as well as the kinds of things that we might be asking for the businesses. So do we have to break down to 2 departments, or is there going to be a way to kind of coordinate these requests?
Well, so I'll give a short answer, and then I think it's probably more beneficial for us to get together and talk more specifically about your concerns. So we certainly, I alluded to the business coordination plan that we'll be doing through Brian and the Chamber of Commerce, and also through Liz in the city. Our intent is to, and you folks as well, our intent certainly is to reach out to the businesses to understand their hours of operation, their peaks, and their customers and things like that, and what their concerns are, and then how we can mitigate and address them. We are also doing a traffic study to understand, like we talked about, we're going to be affecting Fort Point, Osborne, and East Avenue. Obviously, from a rail traffic standpoint, that is beneficial because we have the 2 track outages, and so we're able to do things. But we certainly understand that there's effects on the roadways in the area, and I think that was one of your comments when we met back in March, actually, too. So that's a general answer, I know, but I think it probably makes more sense for us to get together and to talk about your specific concerns and try to address them in that fashion. I will say that we've, like I said, we've been down here 20, 30 times. I will continue to do that throughout design leading up to construction. The construction guys will continue to do that throughout construction. It's a large project. We understand that it affects the community. And as long as there's communication and we're sharing ideas, and I think everyone pretty much understands that this is a 125-year-old structure that needs to be fixed and replaced and things of that nature. And there's going to be some disruption and effects, but we'll certainly do our best to work together and to communicate and to address your concerns. So I think I'll leave it at that for the time being. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is this somehow related to the long-range, high-speed rail line, or is that another project that's going to run through Norwalk?
Yeah, so this project is I would characterize it as a existing infrastructure improvement. This is a 125-year-old structure that has, at times had mechanical difficulties and things of that nature. So this is independent of that. I'll be the first one to admit that I don't know all the details associated with that. I know there's been some meetings and things like that. The prognosis or the likelihood of that actually occurring, I think, is difficult to ascertain. So right now we're addressing the immediate need. That's what this project is doing. John, you're not familiar with the...
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I volunteer for the aquarium, and we get school groups that come in and are dropped off in front of the aquarium, which is off the road. During this project, they're going to have to be dropped off on North Water Street, which is a major problem. Is there any thought about making North Water Street one way from Washington to Ann Street? Because otherwise, you've got buses stopping traffic in one direction and other people coming through the other way.
So we're working with the aquarium, Dr. Davis.
Yeah.
And we meet on a regular basis. As we progress the design, we'll be addressing those concerns of getting the visitors to the aquarium safely. And we've had preliminary discussions about that already, and we'll be addressing that as the design progresses.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have two things. My name is Graham. I'm a resident of West Norwalk. Can you provide, I tried looking online for this and I couldn't find any information. I'm really still skeptical about the lifting bridge option versus the fixed one, and I know you wanted the lifting bridge option. So can you please provide a list to the public of all current vessels that use the Norwalk River and what their current minimum clearance is to go under the bridge and why you need the current 60 feet?
Yeah, so I think on the website and also within the EIE, there's a lot of description and information in regards to evaluation of the alternatives. So whether it was the fixed option, the rehab option, or the removal option. There also on the website is a fixed bridge summary document. I actually pulled it up today to refresh my memory in terms of the information. So right on the main page, there's a fixed bridge summary. We also did a presentation in December where we went through each one of the alternatives. And I think one of the things that people perhaps don't take into account is that whether you're doing a fixed bridge, you're doing a rehab, or you're doing a movable, construction duration is still going to be 4 to 5 years. Cost is of similar magnitude. The noise and disruption within the area is similar. And so when we came up with the movable option, a lot of that is presented in the EA and the EIE as far as how we got to where we got to on the movable bridge. But yeah, we'll get you specific vessel information if that's what you're looking for.
Thank you. And
Yep.
the second thing is, will you be having a open RFP for anyone, any like artists, designers who want to kind of give their own proposal to the aesthetics of the bridge? I understand that Bruce Byfield, who's on the steering committee, proposed his own kind of sketch for the bridge, and I'm wondering if that's also open to the public.
So there's two, so let me approach that two different ways. One thing is in regards to the aesthetics of the bridge, we're meeting with the city in the design advisory committee. So they've given us some aesthetic ideas. I think if other people also have some aesthetic ideas that they want to share with the city, and I think Liz Stocker is the point as far as coordination within the city. Perhaps you could share your ideas of what your vision might be for the bridge and things like that. The other thing is, I know within the MOA, I thought we talked about some artistic,
Bridge.
right?
So there's a requirement in the memorandum of agreement that we do.
Could you speak up a little?
Yeah, when you
Sorry,
come up to the
sorry.
mic, Mandy.
Hi. So in the memorandum of agreement for the historic impacts, one of the things that we did commit to was sharing design with our historic stakeholders and allowing them an opportunity to comment on it. That would be done at the 30, the 60, and the 90% design, so we've shared the 30% with them. So I guess that would be another opportunity to comment too.
Yeah, and I think, and the other element that we've been talking about is recognizing that the bridge is such a central component within the community and Norwalk in general. So we're thinking about ways, I know we've had conversations with the city to celebrate the bridge. And I think in some cases, we've talked about some kind of artist collaborative event of some sort and things of that nature. So that was the other idea that I had in my head. So we might, so look for further conversation on that. And then if you get on our email distribution list, that might be a good way for us to make sure that we stay in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Patsy?
Yeah, I have three questions also. I'm confused about the timing of the East Avenue Bridge, Osborne, and Fort Point. Are they all going to be done consecutively, and my focus is vehicular traffic during the construction time?
John, you want to talk a little bit
So I can
about
talk a
that?
little bit about that. Currently, we're doing traffic studies, but to address those concerns with the traffic, just the way the project's going to work is we have two-track outages schemes that have to take place. So when the walk bridge is being constructed, we're down to 2 tracks. You're going to have to build Osborne, East Avenue, and Fort Point Street at the same time. So we are looking at the traffic options, and we've determined that we can keep people moving. We're working with the city on to limit impacts and how we can, if we have to do any modifications anywhere to keep the traffic moving. But in order for us to replace the structures at the same time that we have the 2-track outages, you have to build half of each bridge all at the same time, because if we were to do every bridge independently, the job would be 3 times longer. So if you can understand that, you're building 2 tracks each time, the whole length of the job, and then when you switch traffic over onto those tracks, you have to build the other 2 tracks. But preliminarily, it looks like we can keep everyone moving, and we're going to work with the city and consultant designers to keep the impacts to a minimum.
Okay, the second question is the timing of the raising of the IMAX theater and replacement of that. I haven't ever heard any of that addressed clearly.
Yep, so we are working with the aquarium in the city in terms of demolition of the existing IMAX, and then there's plans for construction of a new IMAX. I think right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, the aquarium certainly recognizes this as revenue, and so they don't want to go through a time frame where the existing IMAX is not, and the new IMAX are not available, basically, right? So they always want to be able to provide that IMAX experience. So we're working with them. We understand when we would like that area to be available from a construction standpoint, and then we need to work with them to understand when they can build a new IMAX facility so that they line up and so that they're sequential. So
Well,
we're working with them.
Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense, but we have not been, that has not been shared with the general public, so I think in the future, both the East Norwalk issue and the IMAX issue should be part of your presentation to keep us abreast of
Sure.
where we're going.
Yep.
And my third one might be easier, is the decibel level of the beeping backup equipment, is that at 90 or under or above? Because that's going to be a huge problem during night construction.
It's certainly under 90, but it's in the category of nuisance, right?
Yes.
It's nothing more annoying than a backup, you know. For idle equipment, those are the kinds of things we're definitely trying to minimize.
So,
Try to, is that what you said?
Well, I mean, if a vehicle needs to back up, it needs to be back up, but like idling equipment and noise, just for the sake of noise, that we won't stand for that.
so Patsy,
Yeah.
there are requirements in the contract that those backup alarms are to be muffled, so it's not the high-pitched beep, beep, beep
Yeah,
that you
right.
hear, it's more of a, so it is a lower decibel.
Okay, that's on the record. Nobody
Yeah, right.
sees
Yeah, and I mean, I think, Patsy, the other thing that I just offer is, in all our conversations with Chimbrow Middlesex, and they're a contractor, they certainly understand the concerns, and, you know, somebody's here from their group today. It's helpful that we've had them on board, and it's not a typical low bid process, so that we're working as a team. They've been at many of the meetings, they understand the concerns of the community. They're good people, absolutely, and well-intentioned. So I think, and they recognize that they're going to be in the community as well, you know, through completion of the walk bridge. So there needs to be certainly an effort for us all to work together and to build some goodwill as we go through this. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was wondering if you could clarify, there's been some discussion about the cranes that will be used to do a lot of the construction, and just I've heard rumors that anyone who's living in any of those apartments over there may have to move out because you cannot have anyone living under a crane construction if it's swinging around. There could be 2 or 3 cranes. Is there any truth to that the tenants that are currently in the apartments over there across the street from the aquarium will have to move out of their apartments?
Yeah, so John, do you want to handle that? You're probably most familiar.
Yes, so there's been a lot of rumors about that. Right now, we are building into the contract that we are not swinging cranes over live buildings. All right, we're doing everything we can in the design to make accommodations so the cranes stay and do their picks without being over buildings that are occupied. We're not trying to move people out of their apartments to address that, but we're progressing the design with that into an account. And like I said, we're doing everything we can do to avoid that.
But do you know if, doing everything you can to avoid it, but is it a possibility?
I would say right now, no. And I don't think it's going to be a possibility, like what I meant. Yeah, I think we've looked at the area and we can do many things that avoid the buildings. That's what I'm trying to say,
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add to that is initially when we were out here a couple of years ago we didn't have an idea of where cranes might be located, and depending on the scope of the work and things like that. So as we start working with the contractor, we get a better understanding of where those cranes are located, and that ends up that's where the conversation with the existing IMAX really led to. So we have some benefits from a project standpoint of having access to that site that would perhaps cause other difficulties if we didn't have access at that site. So, you know, that's a evolution that comes as we go through design and as we progress through construction. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Back in December 9th, the city filed a 109-page report identifying the conditions that would be affected in various parts of the city as part of your process of getting a finding of no significant impact. In that, the Corporation Council requested a written response to it so that we would understand what your response to those arguments were. Did you ever file, in response to his request, a written response to the 109-page report that was provided to you at that time?
So I'll give the general answer to that, and then I think Chris can probably also provide some more specifics. So we went through the public comment period, and I think that's what you're alluding to. And we got a series of comments that were collated by the city and submitted to the department. And I think that was around the December 9th timeframe. We subsequently, in some cases, they were from the Harbor Commission, they were from the Planning Department, they were the Bike people, Historical Commission, in all those various groups. And so what we did as a project team was we took, and we also met separately with the 3rd Taxing District, and there were some upstream businesses that also provided comments. And so everyone that was identified as far as providing comments in that document, we met with individually, and we went through each one of their comments, and we offered, so A, we wanted to understand the comment if we had some questions about it, and we offered information, because in a lot of cases, this is a matter of, you know, and we explain what finding of no significant impact means. So we certainly don't give the idea that we don't think that there's any impacts or it's minimal impacts associated with the project. Unfortunately, as defined by NEPA, there's this finding of no significant impact. And so we try to explain that and where a finding of no significant impact might occur as opposed to an EIS. So we offered responses to each one of those comments, not only we gave draft responses if we were prepared to in those individual meetings, and then comments, or responses I should say, were offered as part of the record to each one of those comments as well. So that's how we handled it. In a lot of cases, maybe I won't need more information from you, Chris. In most cases, a lot of the comments then led to the mitigation plans. So when I went through and I talked about resource protection, construction coordination, safety and security, and all those mitigation plans. So what ends up happening as part of the process is that we agree to address the concerns that were raised through the development and commitment to these mitigation plans. And so we understood a lot of businesses were concerned, again, using that as an example. And so the department agrees to do a business coordination plan as we progress towards construction. And that will, you know, address their concerns and comments. So I think that answered it. Okay, yes, sir.
My name is Konstantinos, and unfortunately I'm both a resident of East Norwalk and a small business owner in South Norwalk. So I'm affected by pretty much the whole project. Can you speak a little bit more to any kind of planned road closures from like the Strawberry Hill, Winfield Street area, East Norwalk down to North Water Street, anything like that?
John, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so I said right now we're doing a traffic study, and that will progress as we complete, we're now at 30%, we're going to complete the design the rest of this year into next year. We will know more about the road impacts as we go forward, but I said right now we're looking at, you know, maybe very limited, like we have to set a piece of steel, that'd be a closure. but we're trying to do everything we can to design around and keep the roadways moving and open.
Okay.
What I like to add to that is, the main bridge is the longest path, meaning that's going to take the longest, as opposed to the smaller bridges. Right? So say that's 2 years to build that. That gives us 2 years to build the other 3 smaller bridges. They're not going to be done at the same time. We're not going to have a detour go into another detour, and so it is going to be worked out. So over a 2-year period, those bridges will get built half at a time, just like the main bridge will be built.
Okay. And specifically North Water Street, though, I mean, there is a reality, though, that road is going to get closed multiple times throughout the project.
In many aspects, that's the toughest part of the job, that span, the west approach coming in. Without a doubt, that's tricky work.
If you could go back to the slide with the 3D rendering of the bridge with the Ironworks building showing.
It's got to be a quicker way to do this, but. Oh. Isn't
That one right there.
Yep.
So down, see the corner of the Ironworks building, that's where my shop is, and there currently is a retaining wall there. Is that the hardest, is that what you're saying the hardest part of the project is? Down in the lower left corner?
Yeah, west approach.
Yeah, just this.
Yeah, right under the corner business?
Yeah.
This whole
Up on, you guys are up elevated, your entrance is elevated.
That's us. I mean, so can you speak a little more to like, so obviously that's going to get closed at some point, that it's going to be the most impacted area. Are you guys going to, do you have anything to say about the removal of that retaining wall too? I mean, am I going to have to close and
Do you want to
leave for some time?
handle that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we are trying to limit any business disruption. Obviously, if we have closure of the road under the bridge, say for pedestrians, or there might be a protected walkway that we're proposing, we may have limited closures, say at night, if we have to set steel, which you're not going to, you can't build a protection for people to walk through when you're picking a steel beam. But the idea is to keep the businesses operational through the construction period, keep the roadway open 90% of the time, 95% of the time. Like I said, as we progress this, we'll know more. Limited closures, only to do picks of steel and major operations. But you could still access your business from the south. You just wouldn't have people coming under the bridge. So I would say right now, we're doing everything. We don't expect to drive you out of business.
I mean, the reality of that, it's kind of a joke to say that, though, don't you think? I mean,
No, we've had other jobs where we've been able to work with the business owners with signage and these.
So, one thing, so if you're not on our mailing list already, make sure that you see Laura or Megan on your way up, so make sure that we have your information and know exactly where you are anyway, so as far as your business, because we're in talking with Spinnaker quite a bit. I want to give you an understanding of the scope of the work that is going on in that area. The existing abutment, right, that's right against North Water Street, which is basically in line with your business, is going back 200 feet, give or take.
Yeah, about 100.
Yeah, so you can imagine that all of the, wall and all the work or all the material that is between the existing abutment and the new needs to be removed, because that basically opens up for where the new abutment will be. So I don't think that there's any sugarcoating as far as the level of the work that's going to be going on in that area. That certainly is a high impact area as far as the construction work in that area.
And that kind of work will be done during the day as well, or is that nighttime work?
It's probably going to be, I'd say it's mostly going to be at night. Yeah. But the one thing I would say about work as it relates to Walk Bridge, that's a continuing discussion. So we know what's going on with 243 and Dockyard. We still need to talk with Metro North, talk with the contractor, understand exactly how they go about doing the nature of the work that we're designing. And we certainly understand the residential people that are in the area, the commercial people that are in the area, the aquarium, that's a very tight area. So we'll do everything that we can under all those limitations to address things. Okay. So before I go back to you, can I just make sure that
I just
there's...
had a follow-up to his question, that's all.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
You said that, in the 109-page document that the city put forward in terms of its concerns, and you addressed the different Norwalk agencies, and we have a lot, organizations. Is all of the mitigating circumstances and compensation and concerns that were addressed in that 109-page document, have you put that all in one spot and in one document back to the city, either back to the council or to the mayor, in terms of, the various concerns that the city groups have raised? I mean, whether that be businesses or the historical association or the aquarium, is that the impact to the city as a whole? Is your addressing of those issues sitting in one spot? I mean, you said you'd spoken to the different agencies. I was just trying to understand how.
Yeah, so.
It's a lot of moving parts.
No, I'll start off by saying that I think I have to get back to you.
Okay.
Because I'll probably remember as I'm driving home that this is where it is, but right now, I think is it just incorporated? It's in the FONSI? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Appendix F of the FONSI.
For all addressing the whole 100.
So in addition to the comments that came from the city in the referenced 109-page document, and even one-off comments by individuals that may have had a question or comment, all of those comments are itemized and included as part of the appendix to the finding of no significant impact, and that's on the project website right now. Yeah.
The responses are there, or just the questions?
No, the responses, and then part of the response, though, keep in mind that the environmental assessment is treated as a planning document, right? So not all of the details are understood at the level of design at the time that NEPA process is being completed. So what the department has made a commitment to do is through those construction mitigation plans that were displayed earlier, and we may be able to go back to that slide, that lists out the primary areas of concern that were addressed not only in the city's comments, but through other individuals and other agencies, to develop those construction mitigation plans to specifically address concerns that will, in all likelihood, occur during the course of construction. So the process sits right now with those plans being developed in an outline format. And then as the design advances and more detail becomes available and more dialogue continues with the various agencies, those plans will become solidified. So before design is complete and before any construction activity ensues, those plans will be in place. And as Jim mentioned, the department has made a commitment to enforce those plans throughout the construction. And frankly, I don't know what the plan is for sharing the construction coordination plans. In all likelihood, they'll be made available prior to construction. But the development of the plans is no small task, because that requires that continued dialogue with the city, with the businesses, with the residents, and other agencies to better understand what the impacts are. And if I could just address your concern a little bit as it relates to those construction coordination plans. So part of those plans includes a historic building protection plan. Well, the Ironworks building isn't necessarily considered a historic building, but it does fall under the umbrella of building protection. So just by virtue of where your location is, right around the corner, right, there's a whole series of gas meters. Right. Less than 7 feet away from that retaining wall.
They're on the side of my office.
Absolutely. So provisions will be put in place to provide protection in between the retaining wall and the building facility as well.
I mean, that's
obviously
like
for safety
8 feet
concerns.
wide though.
Yeah, 7 feet from the face of the meters to the face of the wall.
Right.
So what you have going for you is, as part of the memorandum of agreement from the historic consultation process, is that we're currently evaluating the reuse of the existing stone, both from the abutment and from the wall itself. That was a commitment that was made through consultation with the historic stakeholders. So the stone that is going to be removed, the portion of the wall is going to be kept in place near the area, basically in between the Ironworks building and the parking garage. those walls will remain, but just because of the way that the bridge is configured, the wall in the area of your business will be removed. But the removal is such that it's going to be a little bit more surgical because those stones have to be preserved for potential reuse. So we're not going to come in with a big wrecking ball and just slam the abutment down, right? So it's going to be a little bit more strategic in the demolition.
But there obviously will still be a lot of noise.
At this time, I can't speak to the amount of noise that's going to be required to complete that operation, but...
Yeah, so I think like we said, right, we're going to need to progress the design and work with the contractor and understand the limitations and the constraints in the area, and then we'll certainly try to work to address it.
And will you guys reach out when you have information like that, or should I?
Yeah, that's why I want to make sure that you get, make sure you're on our mailing list and coordinate with Laura and Megan as you get out, and then we'll make sure that we're in touch with you. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. I'm Diane Cece. I live in East Norwalk, and I'm on the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association as well. While we have our journalists here from the local press, I would like to get more of a statement on the record, more specific about your involvement, the DOT's involvement with the Federal Railway Administration on the high-speed rail. The past few meetings, you keep alluding to the fact that there's really, it sounds like there's no collaboration, and just that you're planning on this project possibly not happening. But they're almost essentially at the same phase that you are, because they've had their record of decision, and it's basically ready to go. Maybe it's just not within the time frame you're talking about. So on the record, could you tell us what the DOT's involvement is with the Railway Administration?
Yeah,
and are you collaborating? Because we're talking about the same tracks and the same projects in several years.
I can certainly appreciate your comment, but the project team, the Walk Bridge project team, is not the area within the department that's collaborating with the rail administration in terms of the high-speed rail. So certainly someone from the department could offer a response to that, but it's not the people that are associated, that are here tonight and that are with the Walk Bridge team.
So does the representatives here from DOT on the Walk Bridge project, do you expect that there's no impact to all of the rail that you're working with the high-speed rail project?
So right now, I haven't been told otherwise, that we need to make some adjustments to our plans in relation to the high-speed plan, or the high-speed rail plan, or the concepts that have been developed. So certainly I haven't heard any change in direction as far as the scope of this job.
Okay, that's fair enough. Just one follow-up is, have you actually seen the conceptual maps? Have they provided them to this team?
So, John, I think...
Yeah, so you're referring to the NEC Future project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as part of the environmental assessment and the public comment period, Amtrak did receive and review the environmental assessment. So in Norwalk, if I'm not mistaken, the plans call for an alignment that's a little bit further north of the present Walk Bridge. And just like the environmental assessment for the Walk Bridge, the environmental document that was prepared for the NEC Future project is considered a planning level document, right? So it identifies the likely track alignments, and in not every case they deviate from the current alignment. So there's a number of points along the Northeast Corridor between DC and Boston where existing trackage is used, where they can achieve those high speeds that they desire. And the real alignment portion of the project is intended to increase the train speeds because right now the Northeast Corridor is confined by tight curvature and things of that nature that doesn't allow Amtrak to really realize that high speed. So that was really kind of the driving force behind them looking at deviating from the current Northeast Corridor track alignment. That work, potentially, I think Jim alluded to earlier, there's no definitive schedule as part of the NEC Future project. I had an opportunity to meet with the Amtrak chief engineer of structures last Monday and actually asked him about the NEC Future project because they have a number of bridges along the corridor, same vintage as Walk Bridge and what the plan was for those. And their plan, Amtrak's plan, is to probably do targeted improvements along the existing rail alignment. And the plans where the new track alignment or the proposed track alignment deviates and like in Norwalk swings further to the north, there's real no time frame to do that. And he frankly admitted that there's limited funding to implement a lot of those improvements. So being able to predict the timing and even the actual reality of those high-speed rail improvements occurring is anybody's guess at this time.
And when you say further to the north, just so people understand, it's presumably along I-95 corridor in Norwalk.
In Norwalk, right? Yeah, from the map that I saw. So Amtrak had an opportunity to review and comment. The FRA also had an opportunity to review and comment on the Walk Bridge environmental assessment, as well as are working closely with the Federal Transit Administration on Walk Bridge specific. So there has been some dialogue, but nothing real specific as far as how Walk Bridge and the NEC Future have any linkage.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
Thank you, Chris. Yes, sir.
If they do go along with this high-speed rail line, will they abandon the existing rail lines? This $1 billion you're putting into the bridge will be abandoned?
No, I don't think so. So you have to keep in mind the Walk Bridge is part of the New Haven line. And the New Haven line carries Metro North traffic primarily. So if you look at the distribution of the number of trains per day that cross the Norwalk River, the predominant number are Metro North trains. So that commuter ridership would continue to be dedicated on the New Haven line. So at least that's kind of the current plan. And then the Amtrak high-speed corridor from Boston to DC would be dedicated on that new alignment. So there would be no plans to abandon the current commuter service on the New Haven line.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Alina Colo. I manage the Sheffield Sono. My property and community is the community that's going to be sandwiched in between the Sono collection, the Danbury dock line, as well as Ann Street. And of course, being a property management community, this is going to affect our property very negative. My question is, what is your timeline for that section where you're also going to be removing some of the tree lines that already exist there in that area? And how long is that going to take? Is it going to be at the section where my community is? Yeah, is it the section where my community is going to be now towards the beginning of fall, and then the next session would be Ann Street work? So it's just my residents are asking regarding the noise level, since of course we're already experiencing that from Sono collections. Just wanted to get a little bit more clarification as to how to address the renters and condo owners.
Yeah, so
what we
it's
can
right
do
on
is-
this slide, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's on this one.
And we have a contractor's baseline schedule of the activities. We can hone in on those activities, and Stacy or Jeff can get you that information, right, to get your email on this.
But initially it's fall, 2017.
Yeah, baseline shows that this fall, the next 2 or 3 months, some select area.
Yeah, so I think I just offer that probably the best way is for you to coordinate specifically with Dean and Stacy, and they can certainly get any information that you need. But I think, when we went through these slides, and these will be available on the website tomorrow, there was already a question about that. This shows the areas of the tree trimming and clearing. And then I think also in Stacy's presentation, he talked about time frame. But probably the best thing is to talk to him and he can get the information out to you. Okay? Yep. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Welcome back to me again. Bill Padwick, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm a property owner as well as a business owner in Liberty Square. I spend most of my waking hours down there, so I'm a resident. things that haven't been brought up with what's going to disrupt traffic. The Eversource with the power cables. From what I understand, your contractor is going to be taking down the catenary towers on top of the bridge over the next few years.
Yeah.
When are they going to do that project? That's going to start, I believe, the most popular opinion seems to be from the South Norwalk train station, underground through South Norwalk, under the river, up through Betts Park, where the launching ramps are, and up Point Street, I believe. That's going to disrupt traffic tremendously. And what's the timing on that?
Yeah, so Eversource is, as you said, we've been coordinating with them. Obviously, their transmission lines are on the top of the high towers. Basically, what we've communicated is that we need them outside of the construction area in terms of the walk bridge prior to our start of construction. I don't know if they have, I don't think they've had a public dialogue as of yet. I know they have been coordinating with the Harbor Commission, and I think they've had some meetings with the city as well. I do believe that the route that you outlined is where they're leaning towards as far as South Norwalk Station, right, and then down and across the river. Their timeline, I'm not specifically sure of. Like I said, we've told them that we need them relocated. I'm trying to do the math as far as when we think end of 19, right? So if we start construction on the walk, and I think you understood from the visual, a lot of the work will be the foundations on the upward side. That's a lot of the initial work. So we have about 1.5 years of work before we need to start getting up within the bridge proper, if you will. So that's the end of 19. So that gets us from the beginning of 18 through the end of 19. So that's the only time frame that we've communicated to them as far as what our needs are. So, I think they're working towards that.
Will that happen before the Point Street Bridge and the Osborne Avenue Bridge?
Yeah.
It's not going to coincide with that?
Right. So before, yes, right? Yeah, I just want to check my answer. Yes. Yeah.
Now, something that I haven't heard anybody talking about in a while is the I-95 bridge and the construction on that. Has that been put off until after this whole walk bridge happens? Because that's our other alternative, getting across the river from one side of Norwalk to the other.
Yankee Doodle, right?
Yeah, Doodle Bridge, and then I think that's going to go all the way up to Saugatuck.
Is that?
Not sure.
I don't have on hand
We can get you
our
the
schedule.
advertising date of that project. I'm hearing that it's pushed off.
It's been delayed somewhat, but not to the walk and thing.
Okay, so that's going to happen at the same time as the walk bridge?
Can't say for certain, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
My division's not administering that project. 3A, and that's District 3, well, part of it.
I'll certainly say that as part of the coordination between projects and as part of the traffic management plan, we are taking into account the projects that will be ongoing and where they'll be, both on I-95 and Route 15. I don't have the specific schedule as to what that project is right now, and neither does Dean. But we certainly are looking at it from a traffic management standpoint.
Do you have any idea of the scope of that project? Is that going to affect the East Avenue overpass and Strawberry Hill overpass?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with the scope of that job. No.
Okay.
No. I'd be happy to get it to you if you give us your contact information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A simple question. The slide right before the last one, where you show this blue bridge, a very simplistic bridge. Can you go to your last page? Maybe it's on the last page?
Okay.
This one.
Whoops.
No, that one. Oh, wait.
This one?
That one right there.
Yep.
Now, is that the same design as what we see with those towers?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the.
Okay, but your towers seem like higher.
Yeah, so I think,
Is the span up a little bit, is that what's making it?
I want to go back to the beginning, maybe?
Well, that looks somewhat similar.
That's a smaller version of it?
Yeah, I think that's almost similar, right? If you-
Yeah, so is the height is, what's the top of tower height?
It's about 140 feet
Yeah.
from top of rail. So just for scale purposes, the high towers that support the transmission lines, those are about 240 feet to the top. So they're about 100 feet shorter than the high tower structures. And it's the same bridge, just depicted at a different time as far as the evolution of the design. So the bright blue bridge that was on the last screen,
Yes.
that was the imagery that was included from the conceptual phase in the environmental document. And then as we progressed the design and working with the design advisory committee with the city, the appearance of it has altered a little bit, but the tower heights and the span length have not changed.
I'm not too crazy about the way that looks. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But is that set in stone, the way that is going to look?
So I think it's fair to say that this is the general concept that's under development right now. I think we started off with, something like this, right? And there's a couple of different options that we discussed with the DAC, with the Design Advisory Committee. And so, where we're currently at, and again, this is I think there's a ways to go as far as, because at this point we haven't defined exactly what the length and width of this top of tower will be. And so we need to work and figure all that out. So this right now is a two-story tower. You can see the first and then the second. So there's still plenty of room for, what I might say, modification of the concept. So there's agreement on concept, but there's still a lot of details and things like that to be figured out as we go along.
So you really can you go back to that original design that's more simplistic?
This is where we're currently at
Right.
in our conversations with the city. Yep.
So when you say the design, did you say team? Is that your team of a DOT? Or is this a design that the city has designed with your cooperation?
So this, I think the best way of explaining it is that this is the conceptual look, image that's been developed in consultation with the city. That's where we're currently at.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Back here, thanks. So, and I'll just say that I agree too with Joanne here that maybe something else should be revisited. The initial reactions that I heard right around me when you first put it up was like a prison yard tower. So it'd be, I mean, you can almost see somebody up there, like it's like a guard type of scholar type thing. So it's, maybe this is not the best rendition of it, what people were looking at, but multiple people have that impression looking at it. So something that probably should be revisited. I want to add a point to what the gentleman who owns property there in Liberty was talking about, though, with the other projects going on, because I've been to most of your meetings from the very beginning, and one of the things that you stressed in the beginning with slides and presentations was the fact that we knew that there were multiple infrastructure projects going on. And for East Norwalk, it's kind of like the perfect storm. But in all the early meetings, you actually had, on the PowerPoint, you actually had the charts of all the significant projects within the peripheral of this walk bridge. And they all had timing assigned to them, and the scope and the level of disruption that would be with them. And you went to great lengths to talk about how you would be coordinating that with Norwalk and Westport, because it does cross over the line. But in many meetings, you actually said you all literally work down the hall from one another, so that there would never be a point in time where these projects were not so interconnected that you wouldn't be able to answer this man's questions about them. Because the Yankee Doodle Bridge project alone, with the impact of this going on, given the, the mall as well. I mean, the Strawberry Hill Bridge is part of that scope to be replaced. It's a major impact, so
Right.
I'm not sure why we're deviating from.
Well, so let me just say this, there is no deviation from what we originally said. All that I'm saying right now is that we didn't put this within the presentation. I don't have a table that lists the projects and what their exact schedules are. There certainly is coordination within the department among the various projects that are ongoing. We have a regional traffic management plan and an analysis of all the projects, understanding what their lane closures are, what their construction impacts are, and things like that. So that is ongoing. That has not changed from what we originally said at the other meeting. So it's just a fair point that we'll certainly include that in future presentations when we come down here and talk to you guys. Okay. Yes, sir.
Kim, what agency will be responsible for the operation of the bridge once completed?
So, John, you're probably best equipped to handle that.
Yep, so Metro North Railroad is our operator for the rail line, so they'll be in charge of operations with oversight from the Office of Rail under the DOT.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, a couple of questions. One, noise ordinance, will you be required to go through this city's noise ordinance for any variations that you may have?
No, the answer to.
So the department's governed by the EPA, so we govern ourselves, so we adhere to the requirements of the EPA. So our governing level of decibels is 90 decibels, so we're not required to adhere to the city ordinance.
And have you been in contact with the city? I'm a councilwoman here, I sit on Public Works, and you have not, it has not come to our committee, let me say it like that. I'm not gonna say you haven't talked to DPW, but it hasn't come to our committee. I represent South Norwalk, so I'm very concerned about this project on several different levels. And I do also want to know about these wires that need to come up starting in 2018 because our residents haven't been informed about this. So if you need to pull up wires, we need to know what roads this is going to affect, what residents, we need to know all of this, and so do our residents. So who is going to be in charge of letting them know?
So these are wires along the railroad right of way, so they're not wires within the city.
And it's not going to affect any traffic?
I doubt it, especially on the current project. Walkways may be different, but most of the wires that are coming down are within the railroad right of way.
Okay, being recorded and it being, what we call it, so you just told me it's not going to affect it.
I said maybe. I didn't say that. I said maybe.
Okay. It's very important that everyone is aware of what's happening. A lot is happening. South North, East Norwalk. We have a lot happening at the same time. Our residents need to know what's going on. We need to know what's going on. Eventually, I don't know. We really don't vote on it in DPW because you all kind of do what you're going to do no matter what. However, and this was the same argument I had when you guys started the construction behind the police station and across from Sono Gardens. You do whatever you want. However, our residents feel it, our business owners feel it. We're asking you to be considerate. This is a nice meeting and it's a formative meeting. However, we need letters on doors. We need it in the paper. Anytime there's going to be any type of a disruption, if we're talking about pulling up wires starting in 2018, it's almost 2018, we need to know where that's going to be, when that's going to be. We need to know all of those things. But I mean, this is very informative, so thank you for having this. But we need to know, one, if we can't stop it now. Obviously, we've been through this, we can't stop this. This is something that you're going to do. Despite, and then my last question is, how is the state budget going to affect this, if at all?
So, before I answer the budget question, let me just say thank you for your input and for your concerns, and certainly that's something from a public outreach standpoint and communication. A couple of the people from our program manager are here, so they'll make sure in consultation with our construction people to make sure we get the word out. Right now, we went back and talked about the budget for the program, so we're at about $1 billion. 243 and Dockyard are starting construction. Those are fully funded. Walk Bridge, like I said, is anticipated to start construction in 2019. The budget is a mix of federal funds as well as state funds. I'm not the budget person, so I'm the design and I'm the program person. Right now, it is in the department's capital plan as far as moving forward with a mix of federal and state funds. So that's where we're currently at. The project, if you will, is in the plan, and it's currently envisioned that it will be funded. Okay.
Now, will these slides, especially this, that will be on the website? Will I be able to access that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that, actually, I think that's, I get the sense we're kind of winding down, which is fine. Let me just go to the end here. So the PowerPoint, this presentation will be up on the website.
On your website of the city?
Right here. So www.walkbridgect.com. And when I talk about a lot of the other information that is available, some of the questions that came in about the fixed bridge, and there's also the scopes of the projects, the schedules for projects, our contact information. You can get sign up to get on our email distribution. I would certainly encourage people to make sure that you visit the website. It's a good source of information. It's part of our dialogue with the community. So with that, I'd like to just thank all of you for coming. We certainly appreciate your input. It's valuable to us. It allows us to make adjustments and to react to it. Right now, I would anticipate Dean and Stacy will certainly be in the project office at Marshall Street, right? That'll be starting up next month.
1st of October.
Yep, so certainly make sure that you stop by and say hello to them if you have any concerns and things like that. And then I think we'll be out here probably doing another update to incorporate some of the questions and comments and areas that you'd like to see addressed, probably beginning of next year. So probably in the January, February timeframe. So that, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.